Hey guys, welcome back to the Checkered Flag podcast. I am co-host Drew, joined over here by Nate, where we're going to be talking about the first race of the season, the Daytona 500, with the highs and the lows of that entire race weekend. But first, want to talk a little bit about the winner, Tyler Reddick. And Nate, I know that Tyler Reddick was winless in 2025, but he was one of those consistent drivers that made it in on points. This being the first race of 2026 and getting that win, I mean, how does this, create the momentum for 2311 looking forward into the rest of this season?
Yeah, I think for me, 2311, especially at these drafting tracks, has looked really good in the past. I know they've looked good at Daytona, Atlanta, Talladega. I mean, Bubba's had a pretty good package at the drafting tracks, and Reddick as well. So yeah, I mean, I think that definitely good start for them to the season. Reddick needs to get a win under his belt. He's one of those kinds of drivers where you can't just keep going without wins. He's expected to be in that chase for the championship, and I think this is a good note for 2311 for them getting off to a strong start this season.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know with Tyler Reddick getting that win, I mean, with the new chase format, it's expected that Tyler Reddick's going to be one of those consistent drivers that's going to guarantee making on points. But the fact that he has a win to start the season, now he can kind of relax and sit back a little bit. And I know, looking at that post race interview, talking about him and Michael Jordan, Tyler Reddick, he in his head thought it was the championship. It was such a big event for them, especially, going into this season after the lawsuit. Like, it's such a high momentum builder for that team. And I know, watching the Daytona 500 throughout that weekend, Bubba was always in contention running up front. You never really saw him ever. He did fade back at points, but he was always in contention in the front. And then, after that, big accident with Justin Allgaier, a lot of those people that were running up front, big contenders. And, Bubba was one of those guys running up front with them. When the caution came out, he was still ahead. So, definitely some good consistency with 2311. We saw Corey Heim and Bubba Wallace leading that three wide pack in the third stage. I think it's definitely something that we're going to be looking forward to down the road. 2311 starting out strong. But, some of the other notable finishers, I mean, shout out Zane Smith, man. I mean, first ever stage win of his career. I think that's huge for front row. Zane Smith, I have never discounted him. He's one of those sneaky drivers, especially with the equipment he's in. He's running up front, runs top 10, top 15. Super grateful for him to get a stage win. But, who are you most surprised about to finish in the top 10 today?
Yeah, I mean, as far as just top 10 finish, I really liked the Brad Keselowski in the top 10. I thought that was really cool seeing the RFK guys out there in front too. I mean, they were definitely had some speed in qualifying. Like we saw Ryan Preece, obviously in that first qualifying before the duels and everything. He had real good speed throughout that entire race. Him coming off of the clash at Bowman Gray and then to come into this race with that momentum and be able to carry it. Obviously, the finish wasn't maybe what he wanted, but I mean, it's good news for those RFK guys. They really do have a good package at these packs or at these tracks. So yeah, I mean, I think Brad Keselowski, especially after all the stuff that he went through this offseason, especially that surgery and just being able to get cleared before coming back to this race, that's really cool for him to be able to finish as high as he did, top 5 finish for him. So yeah, Brad Keselowski is good to see him back in those back in the top standings.
Every single time I saw Brad Keselowski walking around this weekend with his cane, all I'm thinking about is that SpongeBob guy going, "My leg!" and all that stuff. But, obviously we didn't know if he was going to make it to the 500, and, he was determined to get there. And of course, top 5 is a great finish to start the season. Some other notable top 10 finishers we have, of course, the guys you normally see up front, Joey Logano and Chase Elliott. We're expected to see those guys run top 5, and Chase was this close to getting a 500. And I know everyone at the Daytona racetrack would have gone absolutely insane if Chase Elliott secured that victory. But, so close, but no cigar. Josh Berry, shout out to a top 10 for him, especially, down the road when Austin Cindric and Blaney were kind of a no-show. Logano and Berry were kind of the only Penske affiliated Fords running up front, especially after all the accidents we saw. And shout out Riley Herbst. I mean, I think that might be his first top 10 of his career in the Cup Series. Granted, he probably should have finished a little bit better, but kind of want to go into Riley Herbst a little bit. He did cause that last accident going into the trioval on the last lap. I don't think it was a great move. It could have been just lack of experience that he had, but he made a bad move going to the outside. He was not clear of Brad Keselowski, and he caused a really bad accident. And, Joey Logano went airborne. Chase Elliott went head on into the wall at like 180 miles an hour. I mean, you know, Denny Hamlin's defending Riley Herbst. Brad Keselowski's pissed off at Riley Herbst. Like, a lot of mixed emotions, but it is week one. So, but going back to that accident, I mean, in your shoes, like, how would you react if you were in that situation? Would you go up high to try and get around Chase Elliott? Would you stay behind your teammate's bumper and push him to the win? Like, what would you do in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the thing that I'm really thinking about with this whole thing, right? Like, this is the Daytona 500 at the end of the day, right? This isn't just your regular run of the mill race. It's not something we just showed up at, you know, Homestead or some smaller track that people maybe don't have as big of a name to it. This is the biggest race in all of NASCAR. You know, I think he thought he really did have a shot, and he thought he was clear up top to be able to get in front of Brad and be able to try to make a move there. I understand why Brad's upset. You know, he's been racing this for so long, looking for that 500, and it is upsetting, right? Like you can't just be running that long and then not be upset when you get so close to it this late in your career. Um, but I do think that Riley Herbst, I'm not going to defend him because I don't think it was the right move at the end of the day. I don't know that even if he does get in front of Brad there, I don't know that he's going to be able to beat out that run that Reddick had at the end there. But I do, I don't discount what he's doing there because at the end of the day, this is the Daytona 500. And if you had a chance to win the Daytona 500 and you're that close, I think anybody's going to make any move that they can. So I kind of I can't really side with either side. I could see both sides of the argument here. So understand why
Yeah.
Brad's upset, understand why Denny's got his back, but, at the end of the day, it's the biggest race in NASCAR.
I mean, here's the thing with the Daytona 500. I mean, Super Bowl of our sport. I'm a quote Dale Earnhardt Sr. If it's Jeff Gordon or any other driver in the field, put that son of a bitch in the wall because you're coming out of turn four on the last lap going into the start finish line. Like, it's checkers or wreckers at that point. So, I don't think Riley was in the wrong going for that move, but I think he should have been more cautious. I mean, I was listening back to the, driver spotter radio, and the spotter didn't really help in that situation. I think Riley just kind of sent it and didn't work out, but still got a top 10. So, something great to see out of that 2311, especially considering he was the worst running car full time. I mean, Cody Ware was basically almost outperforming him. And he's in 2311 equipment with Bubba winning at Indy, Reddick also making the playoffs. Like, we expect him to at least be a better, run better than what he did in 2025. So at least some momentum going into Atlanta. Couple of other notable finishers: Daniel Suarez, first start with Spire, gets a top 15. Solid day for him. I know he kind of kept out of the accidents and stuff. Noah Gragson, solid top 15. Kyle Busch obviously started on the pole. Was hoping for good things to happen out of him, but obviously can't predict them all. Couple of big accidents going throughout the race, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about that first accident with Justin Allgaier. It was so awesome to see that Traveler Whiskey 40 car up front. Badass scheme. I mean, the Traveler Whiskey brand is really good with their promotions and marketing. Getting their merchandise sold. I mean, I myself thought I wanted to get a shirt really badly, but I know they overcharge the hell out of stuff while they're out there, so I'll probably just go online and buy it later. But, you know, kind of going into that big one, I mean, man, Justin Allgaier, obviously ran the 500 last year, but, that was his first start in a long time in the Cup Series. So, do you think that was some sort of like rookie mistake, or, was it just a bad push? Does he not understand the momentums from the cars coming out of the corner? Like, I'm unsure on what the communication was between driver spotter right there, because I don't think he made necessarily a terrible block, but you know he left a hole open for Denny, and Denny took it, and Allgaier tried to come up and cause the big wreck. So, I'm not sure what was going on with Allgaier, but took out a ton of good drivers. I mean, a lot of those guys were in contention. So, Kyle Larson, my guy, blew the tire out of his fender. Didn't have any speed after it, but still finished top 16. We'll take that. But some other notable drivers that wrecked out. I mean, you got big names. I know Todd Gilliland was wrecked out at that point. A couple of other people, but what do you think about that accident? I feel like that Justin Allgaier made a late block and made a bad move, and I think that just might be a rookie mistake.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you could say rookie mistake, but at the same time, he's ran, however long he's run in, the Xfinity slash now O'Reilly series. Uh, so I don't necessarily know that it was a rookie mistake, but I do know watching that in during the race interview with Allgaier, he did take full accountability. He said it was just he thought he was clear, and turns out he wasn't clear. And I think it's just a like maybe not rookie mistake in that aspect, but just a rookie mistake in this car. He's not used to driving this car. He's used to driving, that O'Reilly Auto Parts series car. Um, I think he just thought he was clear up top and made too late of a decision to try to stay out in front of that pack. And one of the drivers that I was pretty upset about that kind of got caught up in that whole thing was SVG. He was running in top 10 there for a good minute. So I was, as a Trackhouse guy, I really liked seeing SVG running well at that oval. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's Daytona again. Like, you're gonna have wrecks like that. It's about coming back from those, and it's about putting yourself in a place to win at the end there. But yeah, I think it 100% is all on Allgaier. He took accountability for it himself, um, and he's just got to do better next time. However, I would like to see that car at some more races. So Dale, just if you can, bring that 40 car back.
That's what I'm saying, and the color on that number is gorgeous. I mean, I don't know what it is, but catches my eye every time. But like I mentioned, checkers
Yeah.
or wreckers, yeehaw, kind of thing. Everyone's kind of doing the same thing. They're all wanting to stay out front, especially with this fuel strategy. That's been known for the last couple of races at restrictor plates. So, kind of going off of Allgaier, we saw another accident between Zilich and Cody Ware right in the front of the field. I think there was some contact between Zilich and Chastain teammates up front, and then it caused a chain reaction. Cody Ware, ended up side getting hitting the side of the door. I can't remember what car it was, but caused that accident. Took out some really good drivers like Chase Briscoe. Ty Gibbs was never in contention after that point. Zilich obviously spun out as well. But kind of going back, like I mentioned, I feel like the inexperience is also taking effect in there. Because Zilich I'm not saying Zilich caused the accident, but it caused a reaction out of Cody Ware to kind of make that abrupt move and cause that first big accident that we saw with multiple cars. So obviously Zilich first ever Daytona race. Obviously ran the duels, but with the 500, I think he was running pretty solid. He was running up front before that accident. I think he had a really good car. Was working well with the Chevys. So definitely something that we can look forward to at Atlanta next week. I think that the Trackhouse did bring some good cars. We saw Chastain running up front. SVG was right there with Allgaier before that big accident. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, it happens. It happens at Daytona. It happens at Talladega. There's going to be accidents. People are going to make mistakes, and it's expensive, but it happens. So, bunch of different accidents took out a bunch of good drivers. I mean, that's just Daytona for you, and I'm super grateful that we were able to get that race in because, the on that Saturday they had the race still scheduled at 2:30, but they moved it up an hour, which I thought, whoever came up with that decision, they need a payday because
Yeah.
literally 20 minutes after the race ended, victory lane celebration started pouring. I was at the race myself. I beat out the traffic, beat out the rain, made sure I got home in time to relax and wind down a little bit. But, seeing that we got a good finish out of that, and we got to see the checkered flag, I think something to look forward to at NASCAR. Kind of seeing changes like that, especially playing around with weather. I think that that's something that NASCAR did a really good job at this weekend. So, but yeah, kind of looking into the third stage. I do want to bring this up. It's kind of been known at a lot of the other drafting tracks and races that we have in and NASCAR, fuel saving, and it is a huge component in these races. Typically the first two stages they're riding around, but with the cautions that came out, we had people get in the pit road, get their fuel in, and it was go, go, go the first two stages. But then we get to that third stage after a couple of big accidents. You have the Toyotas leading the pack. You got Bubba Wallace, Christopher Bell, Corey Heim. How do we fix this? Like, I it's not fun to watch. It's not a good racing product to see these Toyotas running up front, leading the pack for 50 laps. No one wants to pass each other. Everyone's saving fuel. Like, what can NASCAR do to kind of prevent that? Because I think a lot of the fans are upset with how the third stage went because they weren't really racing each other. It was just saving fuel. And then at the last minute, everyone started going down and getting fuel. And it just looked like a shit show. But, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so I mean, my take on it basically, you don't like to see that, especially at a race like Daytona. You know, you're getting your there's a lot of viewership. There's a lot of eyeballs on this whole thing, and NASCAR I think is doing a lot right now to, try to promote the sport as much as they can. I know that they had that loudest billboard in New York thing that they were doing. I think that they're doing a lot with this "Hell Yeah" campaign that they've got going on. I think they've got a lot going with like some good promoters like Cletus, trying to help the sport, get to that next level, get back to where NASCAR should be at the top ranks of sports that people are watching. But this is just the kind of quality stuff that we don't want to see out of the racing. Can you even really call it racing? I mean, realistically, you're going in a circle just following the leader. Uh, and it kind of made me to where I was like, I was bored. I was on my phone just kind of waiting for whenever people were going to start pitting for fuel. Um, I think the only thing you can really do in that situation is try not to get all the same manufacturers up there leading the race, because if we saw a Chevy or if we saw a Ford up there and we had some different strategies trying to, push on the outside or push on the inside or wherever they're at, I think that it kind of changes the mentality of it. But at the same time, it's just with this package that they're given and it's producing what the teams need. They're trying to get those cars to the finish line. They want to, as a team owner, you don't want to see your car wreck out, right? You don't want to see your car in the wall. You don't want to be the guy who's spinning out through the infield. You want to see that car cross the finish line in a good position. But I really don't know what NASCAR can do to fix it. I just know that, especially with a race like Daytona, you want to get as much action packed in there as much as possible. And I think it's just a decision of the teams. They got to be able to be more aggressive in situations like that, make moves, and try to put your guys up front. Because I know that ending pit strategy kind of it really did mess up a lot of guys that were leading that race. You had guys like I don't even can't even think of it off the top of my head. You had guys like Ross who were up there in the front of the pack towards the end, but he got shuffled back and finished outside of the top 20, or right at the top 20. He finished in 20th place and he was running top 10 right there at the end of the race. But those kinds of guys, just because of that pit strategy at the end, it messed up a lot of guys' days, and especially when that late caution gets thrown, it really just throws a big wrench into things. So I think
Yeah.
teams just need to realize that there's not a whole lot that you can do to control it. It is Daytona at the end of the day. Uh, so let's race, let's not just run around in single file lines.
100%. And I know, I think it's just the fact that a lot of the teams are too smart to kind of throw everything away. And what I mean by that is each manufacturer meets up, Chevys, Toyotas, Fords, they meet up, have a meeting, talk about the strategy before the race. These manufacturers, they have a plan before they get out on the track and they start the first lap. And they're going to stick to that plan unless something drastic changes. And I think if they get rid of that dynamic and they actually just, full on send it, brings out a lot better product. But at the same time, causes more accidents. And we saw that with Allgaier and them, pushing it too hard in stage two towards the last 10 laps. We saw that big crash. I'm sure it's an expensive weekend. So, I don't blame teams for wanting to ride around and save fuel and kind of go at the end. I think that that's kind of like the way that the way the stages are set and the way the race is set. I think that's just kind of how everything goes. But you know, looking ahead, we'll probably see something very similar at Atlanta. We'll see something very similar at Talladega. So, there's not much NASCAR can do at this point. It's all the team's discretion as to how they play their strategy, and we saw that. I mean, the Toyotas pit together, the Fords pit together, the Chevys pit together. They all have a set in stone plan, and there's not much to do about it. And I'm sure NASCAR's listening, but there's not much they can do, and it sucks because we want to see good racing the entire time. Like, back in the 90s, 2000s, I mean, those races were always entertaining to watch because you had people constantly slingshotting each other. And that's why Atlanta is one of the most entertaining tracks at this point, just because they are able to build that and run slingshot past them and take the lead. So, looking into Atlanta, hoping that we don't have that stupid fuel strategy saving and actually have a good race for once. But I don't know. We'll see at the end of the day. But hopefully Fox brings their A game. I know um, we're used to this at this point. Mike Joy kind of lost all the emotion in the booth. Kevin Harvick's just busy monologuing. Clint Bowyer's going, he the goddamn holler and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I think they need a booth change or something because the broadcasting hasn't been the greatest the last couple of years. I think since Gordon left the booth, we haven't really had that fire that, Larry Mack, DW, Mike Joy, that dynamic was so good back in the day. We've been missing that energy in the booth. And with Kevin Harvick monologuing, Mike Joy, just saying like, hey, tune in. This race is brought to you by Coca-Cola. Like, we don't
Yeah.
want to listen to that. We want to actually hear some energy, enthusiasm in the booth. Like, these guys need to be excited to commentate this race. Obviously, they have a contract. I'm sure they can't do certain things, but, you know, with the way that it went, I mean, run 5 laps in a commercial, run 5 laps in a commercial. And then, when we're running 5 laps, it's just Kevin Harvick talking, some random stuff, Clint Boyer talking, and Mike Joy just there smiling and, smiling and waving. I mean, I don't know, man. The Fox broadcast has just been bad the last couple of years, and
Yeah.
it's frustrating as a NASCAR fan perspective because I look forward to tuning into these races, and then all of a sudden you just, oh, look at that, Zane Smith wins the Daytona 500. What a great win for that team.
Yeah.
No one wants to hear that. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the other big thing too, I think that the Fox broadcast, I think they did better with the 500 was the side by side. The side by side racing with the commercials. They did better with that with the 500. However, with the O'Reilly Auto Parts series and the Truck series, like, what are we doing throwing a commercial with 10 to go? Like, it makes complete no sense. Like, it's 10 laps to go. This is the end of the race. This is the part that everybody's on the edge of their seats. They're ready to watch. There's 5 minutes left of the race. Like, what are we doing throwing a commercial in there at the end? Um, I think that's my biggest takeaway with this whole thing is just if you're gonna have commercials, that's fine. I understand that's what pays the bills. But at the same time, Prime, when they were running this whole thing, it was some of the best broadcasting that I had seen all last year. So I think Fox, and the other broadcasting partners of NASCAR need to take some notes from Prime as to what they're doing, and just see what they can do to bring some of that action, bring some of that enthusiasm, and bring some of that side by side commercial with the broadcast of the race together. There's enough cautions that are thrown in a single race. Have as many commercials as you want then. Nobody wants to watch them run around in circles under yellow. So let's have our commercials then. Maybe do a little side by side here and there if there's no cautions, but you know, let's let's see more racing at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I remember growing up, I remember they would, go to commercial when the caution came out. They'd come back, watch the pit stops, then go back to commercial, and then come back on the green flag. I like that system because there's not much happening on the track. And I think that the bare minimum of doing the side by side is what Fox needs to do to get their foot in the door because Prime did that all the time. So now they have these expectations for the other broadcasters. NBC, TNT, Fox, they all need to kind of copy what Prime's doing because a lot of the fans were happy with the way Prime broadcast happened. So definitely something to look forward to. We may see improvements in the booth later this year. Hopefully we see some changes because it needs to happen. I feel like I'm falling asleep listening to Kevin Harvick monologuing. It's like I'm listening to a podcast of my own, and I don't want that.
Yeah.
I want to see Kevin Harvick go, oh my God, look at him go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
But anyways, enough about Fox. Let's kind of talk a little bit about the car itself. I think one of the things I was looking forward to most was keeping the cars on the ground. And Brian Priest, thank God that he didn't get into a rocket ship and go into space. Super happy he stayed on the ground. But with these roof flaps, man, I mean, we saw a couple of incidents where we normally expect a car to flip over with the old flaps. I mean, take one, for example, Bubba Wallace. I remember he got turned going into turn one and, he was sliding sideways where, his car would flip like that if he caught enough air under his car. But the flaps, he was just bouncing around and he kept his car on the ground. And that's huge because these cars are so light. They're so light and that's how they have so much speed. And the fact that we saw an accident like that where his car actually didn't turn over. I mean, the only time we really ever saw a car in the air was Logano going into the start finish line, but that was because he got hit by another car. And obviously that creates a whole different scenario. But with a car flipping on its own, like we saw with Ryan Preece in the 2023 Coke Zero 400, it was really fun to see. I mean, I'm happy we didn't see any cars flip. I mean, the accidents that happened, granted, they were pretty rough. We didn't see any like terrible flips and, really bad damage to a car that could have caused injury. So, I mean, with the flaps, I mean, what are you thinking right now?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that in that duel, it was the duel wreck, right, when, Bubba was getting ready to flip.
Right.
You could definitely see air getting under that rear, I think it was his right rear tire as he's coming through and spun around. You could see air getting under it, and it's almost like as soon as those flaps come up on that A pillar, A post, whatever, it brought the car right back down. So I thought that was it's good, right? NASCAR needs safety. It's probably one of the most dangerous sports that you could ever be out there running 200 mile an hour with thousands of pounds of cars, running around you all at the same time, running the same speeds. And I think it's good for NASCAR to bring that safety aspect into the race and keep those cars on the ground. Uh, you know, as I guess fun as it is to watch to see a car flip over, it's no good for the drivers. None of them want to be. They've got families. We all care enough about those people to know we don't want to see anybody go flipping through the infield. As fun as it might be to watch, you worry about those guys' families. The thing I thought that was most interesting about it was they applied that to the Cup Series cars, but when I was looking at some of the lower series races, like the Xfinity Series, or sorry, O'Reilly Auto Parts, I'm gonna keep doing that. I apologize. O'Reilly Auto Parts Series is those guys are they don't have those same the same flap features as the Cup Series cars. Granted, those aren't the ones that are flipping as much as the Cup Series cars have been in the last couple of years since those Gen 7 cars come out. But I think the biggest thing is apply it that if this is actually working, let's see it across more series in NASCAR just to keep everybody safe, just in case. But yeah, I really
I
liked
mean,
it. I think
it's
it's a small thing that they're doing, and it could help keep people safe.
sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. I mean, I was just saying, the way the cars are built are completely different. I think that it should be on a per series basis and not, the same roof flaps for all 3 series because truck aerodynamics is gonna be a lot different than the Gen 7. And
Yeah.
O'Reilly's, same thing. I feel like what they have right now is fine, but if we do see any cars get in the air, we didn't see any this weekend, thank God, but if we do see any, then, we may need changes down the road. But, kind of looking into next week, obviously, we have another drafting track in Atlanta, so, you know, that track, I don't think we're gonna see any cars flip. I don't think there's enough, like, area at the track to see a car go airborne, that they get super close to the wall before any car even decides to start flipping over. So, definitely something to look at, especially at these drafting tracks down the road are these flaps. And, another thing, I felt like the Chevy bumpers did a pretty good job too. I mean, they were bumping and they weren't turning. I feel like a lot of the accidents where people were spinning, I think the only one we saw Denny Hamlin turn Justin Allgaier. That was a Toyota versus a Chevy. We saw on the last lap Eric Jones turned Carson Hocevar. That was a Toyota against a Chevy. We never really saw any Chevys with their bumpers really get into any accidents. So I think they did a really good job on their bodywork.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Chevy nose is I think there's some little things they got to get dialed into throughout the course of this season. I thought one of the things I thought was interesting in qualifying was you kind of saw that car porpoising where it was like bouncing across the track as they were going around. So I think that that's one thing that they got to try to fix because it affects qualifying speed. If you get bouncing around like that, you're starting to affect the aerodynamics of the car and everything else. And let's just help those guys qualify a little bit better. It wasn't as stable. I think that they definitely looked still like a little sporadic at times to where they were getting a little squirrely when it wasn't necessarily where they were drafting. But at other times when they were in qualifying and stuff like that, it looked a little more squirrely. But I think throughout the course of the race, we didn't really see any problems with it, which is good. So I think Chevy still got a little bit of work to do, but it definitely is a big improvement from last year with this new front end.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm kind of drawing a blank right now. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I got one question for you. Obviously, you were at the race. I know big differences throughout this season as opposed to last season. I felt like there was more energy surrounding the entire race, the energy surrounding the Daytona 500. I know we had, I think it was First Take was there on scene actually interviewing drivers and bringing, this is a show that is normally talking about basketball, they're talking about football, they're talking about baseball, the big 3 sports in America right now. They went and were on scene at Daytona to be there and film a show live there. I thought that was really cool. I thought, Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour, obviously, they did the show live from the Daytona 500. He is a NASCAR guy, so I can see why they did that. But I think just overall, the energy surrounding the race, like I said earlier, with the billboard, with Cletus, with all these guys that are really in the hell yeah uh, motto that NASCAR is bringing this season. I really like all of that. Just seeing all those things, it just felt like the energy was different around it. I don't know what did the energy feel like for you when you were at the track?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with the 2025 Daytona 500, I think a lot of it was severely overhyped because one, the president didn't let us know until 2 days before the race that he was gonna be at the 500. That caused a whole security fiasco. A lot of fans were pissed off the fact that they were waiting at gates for multiple hours, and then, of course, you had the rain delay. And then we go into this off season, we have new changes. Steve Phelps is gone. Chase is back. Rams coming back. A lot of things that are kind of being hyped up in the off season where, they're marketing it really well, where now we're getting into the 500. A lot more people are excited for the racing to actually start. We didn't really feel that from 24 to 25 in comparison to this year. And when I was at the track, I mean, those Thunderbirds, man, holy hell, they are loud. I remember I was in the infield they came by the first time. They flew past my head at least 6 times, and one of them caught me off guard. I was literally Here's what happened. So I was pretend this is a table. I was folding up the table. The Thunderbirds basically fly by me, and I'm like, I mean, it was electric. Like they kept coming by. I mean, it was super fun. I mean, it was super electric. I mean, being there, lap 3, everyone holds the 3 up. That's obviously a tradition. Um, it was really fun to be there in person, and I met a couple of fans myself. Obviously they're pretty drunk, but that's the typical NASCAR demographic. But it was really fun, talking to them. They were getting super hyped watching the accidents and stuff. So, I think we're starting off on the right foot.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like this is a different I get a different vibe with this season. It just seems like NASCAR is really, they've done a lot of promotions in the past couple of years, like with the Chicago Street Race, bringing Cletus into the sport, some cool stuff that they've been doing. I think they're really trying to, you know, not be scared of the fact that, having an identity and the identity being like the hell yeah of NASCAR. That they're not trying to be, too politically correct with it as far as just being, oh, we need to do everything right and try to be playing both sides of, the argument as far as just, do we want to be sensitive to, you know, are people going to be upset if we say hell yeah or whatever? They're just saying, this is our sport. It's badass. We're gonna see cars go around in circles at 200 mile an hour, and it's gonna be fun. So hell yeah. So I think that portion of it, you know, NASCAR is trying to give themselves that identity that I think the sport's been missing for a little bit, and I think that's the big thing for me. It just seems like we're getting off to where NASCAR has an identity, and we know what to expect from the sport going forward this year. So, I mean, just going off of that, I mean, at the 500, and I mean other drafting tracks too. I mean, we saw Kyle Larson again this year at his first drafting track. Obviously, got unlucky. He think he led a couple laps early on, but he obviously again gets unlucky. I think I feel like this is going to be his year. Speaking of just, going into this season, I feel like this year has to be his year where he gets a super speedway win. He's got the speed. He's in a new Chevy that is going to be able to, push a little bit better at these drafting tracks. And I just, I like seeing him up front. I like seeing him in that position in a place to win. Uh, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on the whole thing, especially being a Larson fan?
First off, I need you to relax a little bit. No one is happy that Larson's up front. Everyone hates Larson, and I mean that's how it is because everyone hated Logano when he was winning the championships. Everyone hates Larson because he's a Hendrick driver. Everyone obviously got Mickey Mouse and Chase Elliott, but Kyle Larson is equally hated as much. So, Larson fans, Hendrick fans are grateful he was up front. Everyone else was mad. So, definitely throw that aside. But I mean, man, the last couple of races, especially in 2025, I feel like Larson is finally starting to turn his luck around. I mean, finished second at Atlanta, second race of the year, going to the Coke Zero, wins the stage, going at Talladega, was leading the inside line until he ran out of gas. I mean, who knows? I mean, now that he's at Hendrick till 2031, recently got a contract extension over the weekend, which I think is 100% deserved. I think we'll definitely see, at least in the next 5 years, a Larson Super Speedway win because that's the one racetrack he hasn't gotten a win at, or the type of racetrack, excuse me. But yeah, I think definitely something to look forward to. I'm happy that they finally came to an agreement. So, um, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, Chevys are the most dominant manufacturer in the sport, so as long as they stick together, we'll definitely see a Larson win down the road. But now that we're going into Atlanta next week, one thing that we've been doing at the end of our podcast is we talk a little bit about like who are the ones to watch, who's our pick, who are we putting on our fantasy team, and all that. So, you know, last week I picked Chase Briscoe, started off really hot, qualified second, running up front. Then, of course, BJ McLeod's an idiot. So, or was it BJ? No, I think it was the Zilich incident that caused Briscoe some damage when Austin Dillon ran into him. So, not a bad pick, but shit happens. You're up 1 point on me. I think it's
Yeah.
bullshit.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Briscoe was a good pick going into the race, but it is Daytona, right? You can't really take everything. Some of the best drivers we expected to finish in the top of the pack really didn't, right? Like I thought, especially my biggest surprise of the season was Ryan, or not the season, the race was Ryan Blaney. I thought Ryan Blaney was going to run up front, and he finishes 27th. To start off the season at a track that he's been really good at in the last couple of years. Um, and I really think that he is going to start to pick it up with these drafting tracks and everything, but uh, obviously off to a slow start.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Blaney, I just feel like he was never a factor, man. And he's normally a guy we see dominate these type of races, and the fact that he wasn't running up front, leading laps, that's shocking. So definitely something to look at. We'll see what happens at Atlanta. If he starts running up front there, then we know nothing's changed. But if he's not running up front, then I think that there's something wrong with that team, and that will be something to keep our eye on looking into the 2026 season. But you know, driver pick'ems. What are we thinking for Atlanta? Obviously, had the 500, saw the Yodas running up front, Chevys are running up front, Fords are running up front. I think it's a toss up right now between what manufacturer is going to take the win next week. So, my pick, hmm, this is tricky. You know what? This is Ricky's. Ricky Stenhouse is going to be my pick. Finish second at the 500. That Chef Boyardee car, I don't even know why the hell they're a sponsor in NASCAR, and I love it. That paint scheme was super cool. They had their own
Ravioli.
They had their own booth. They had their own booth down by the midway outside the track, and I went over there and they gave me a free can of ravioli, so I'll take that. Yeah.
Nice.
But Ricky's gonna be my pick. I think that his only wins have come at drafting tracks. Finishes second at the 500. Got some momentum going into next week. He's gonna be my guy to watch out for.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I obviously like going into this. I think what was the rule? We can't pick the fantasy drivers we take this week. So I think
Man, screw
my
fantasy.
my pick for this week's gonna be Denny Hamlin. I think he was doing a really good job.
Boo!
I know. I mean, I think realistically, if I'm going to take him, I'm going to take him now. He did really well at this last drafting track. Was up there in the front of the pack until the wreck started to happen. Uh, and I think he's got a real good chance. Did really well at Daytona, especially in the past. Maybe not in this Gen 7 car, but in that Gen 6 car, he was doing a lot better. So I got Denny Hamlin doing pretty well. Especially, I feel like we always see those Toyotas at the front of this Atlanta pack. So I like Denny Hamlin in this race. So yeah, that's gonna be my pick for this week. Uh, I'm gonna go into my top 10 for this week, just kind of going off of the race, and you can kind of give your reactions and say what you think about it, and see where I went right, where I went wrong. I know last week I had Daniel Suarez, which he was kind of my hot take. He didn't finish too bad. I think what was it? Where was he at? He was
Top
in the
15.
top 15, right there in 13th place. So my picks this week, I got William Byron for my number one in my power rankings. I got Denny Hamlin in second. Obviously, two guys who perform well at these drafting tracks. Chase Elliott, obviously, he was in there at the end when it came down to the finish. I think he's going to perform well here at Atlanta as well. I think that's his home track as well, isn't it? He's a
Hmm.
Georgia guy. So I think he'll perform well at his home track. I got Larson. I'm gonna put Larson up there just because I've got that hope for him. I hope that he's gonna get one of these drafting track wins. Blaney, I think last week was kind of a fluke. I think he did well with qualifying. He did well with the duels. He was doing well with when he especially when he was paired up with that other Penske car and Joey Logano. They were doing really well at pushing and getting some momentum going behind him. I think if he can qualify well, that they're going to have a good shot at this Atlanta race. Tyler Reddick, I feel like I have to throw him in there. Obviously, after just coming off of that Daytona 500 finish, he's finished well at Atlanta in these past couple of seasons, so I think he's going to have a good chance being up there in the front of the pack as well. There's another one of those Toyotas. Uh, Chris Buescher, another guy I really like him at these drafting style tracks. Obviously, he was my pick for last week, so I got him up there in my rankings, and then some one new guy on the board. I got Bubba Wallace this week, just because Bubba mainly, Atlanta, I feel like is one of his stronger tracks, or he tends to perform better at. Again, with that Toyota, that 2311, it really looked like they had some good speed in this drafting package. Then I got Chase Briscoe, like you said, qualified second. So obviously he's gonna I think he's going to have some speed. And then I got Brad kind of rounded out my top 10, Brad Keselowski, especially with how he finished in this race and how well that those RFK cars looked going into Daytona.
Yeah, I mean, solid top 10. I don't really have anything to say, which is honestly shocking. I mean, I don't think there was a single bad pick in that top 10. I think we're going to have a very similar top 10. Number one, Logano, pretty clear answer. Number two, Chase Elliott, pretty clear answer. Number three, number four, teammates of 2311. I got Reddick and Bubba. Um, five and six, Toyota teammates, Briscoe, Hamlin. And then rounding out my top 10, I got four Fords. I got Priest, I got Busher, I have Blaney, and I have Josh Berry rounding out my top 10. I think I'm kind of just basing my luck on who's the most who's the strongest manufacturer at these drafting tracks. I think that's a lot to do with my top 10, but obviously Bubba and Tyler Reddick worked really well together at the 500. Obviously, Chase Elliott's a really good drafter. Logano, Blaney, everything's kind of just common sense at this point if you've been following NASCAR as long as I have for my top 10. So those will be the guys to watch out for. My one dark horse pick I'm going to shout out is going to be Michael McDowell. And the reason why I say that is Michael McDowell has mastered the fuel strategy. And I think with that, with the fuel strategy, Michael McDowell ended up not pitting when everyone else did, and the caution came out when Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin had that accident. So, McDowell was up front. He was in contention for that win. Obviously, it didn't go his way, but I think he's going to have a solid finish next week in Atlanta.
Yeah. No, I agree with that McDowell pick. A couple of my honorable mentions going into this week too, or I got Kyle Busch. Obviously, with him qualifying as well as he did, I thought he really performed well with what the circumstances were. I think he kind of got shuffled back in the pack with everything that went on this past week at Daytona. Um, got a little bit unlucky at times, but I know in that last stretch he was in 20, I think it was like 25th place, and he moved up 10 spots to finish 15th. So I think that was really good and a veteran move by Kyle Busch. So I think he deserves an honorable mention. And another person I want to give an honorable mention to is
Sorry.
is Carson Hocevar. Obviously, he was the guy that ran all 3 races this weekend. Kind of showed his inexperience in all 3 races, I would say. With the trucks, he's performed well in the past with the trucks. He's had a couple of truck wins and everything. Um, but with that, I think he blew like 3 or 4 tires in that truck race, which was disappointing. He'd work himself up to the front of the pack and blow a tire. He'd work himself back up to the front of the pack, blow another tire, and it was disappointing to see that. I think he also
Fades of
got
Phoenix
wrecked.
Raceway.
Yeah, I think it was also he was also doing pretty decent in Xfinity, wrecked out there, and then also
You
obviously
said
like
what?
at the did he
What's
not
it
wreck out
called?
at? Oh, sorry, O'Reilly's. He but then again, like in the Cup Series, he came up to that front of the pack. I think he got wide eyed seeing that he was leading the Daytona 500 on that last lap, and just got a little bit squirrely there and made a bad move and put himself in the wall. Um, so I think he deserves an honorable mention. I don't know. What did you think about Carson Hocevar over the weekend? Obviously, in the 3 races he ran.
I think he's just an idiot.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I'm not gonna disrespect Hocevar. He's still young. He's got a lot of speed. I think Trucks had a good car. I don't even know what was going on with that fender that made him blow all those tires. But O'Reilly's obviously didn't go too well. But in the duels he finished second. In the duel that he raced, pushed his, I think it was Chase Elliott or Logano. I can't remember what duel he was in, but pushed them to the win. Was in contention there. Obviously clean finish. And we get to the 500 leading the last lap. I have high hopes for Hocevar, and I actually have him predicted in my chase down the road when it starts in September. So, hopefully he'll be able to keep up with the consistency. Obviously, didn't get the finish he wanted, but was up front in first place on the last lap. We're going to be seeing more of Hocevar up front. But that's going to do it today at the Checkered Flag podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. If you want to give us a follow, or Jesus Christ, can you wrap this up? I don't even know how to do the outro, man.
All right, guys, that'll do it for us here at the Checkered Flag Podcast. If you can, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, follow us on our other platforms. We're going to be posting more on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, wherever platform you can find us. It should be at Checkered Flag Pod on all platforms. Yeah, we really appreciate the early listeners, and can't wait to see you guys next week after Atlanta. Thanks.
One more thing, foot on the gas, drive real fast. Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right, later.